Welcome to the School Leaders Podcast. My name is Dr. Gastrid Harrigan, the podcast for current and emerging school leaders, those who support and supervise them. You will hear from passionate educational leaders who are transforming their schools, communities, and creating positive outcomes for students. I will also share my personal reflections and tips from over 15 years as a school leader. Together, we will talk about how to level up our schools and leadership practices. Hello, welcome to the School Leaders Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gastrid Harrigan. Thank you for making the School Leaders Podcast part of your growth journey. My first year as a new assistant principal was very interesting. It happens that I became a new assistant principal at a school where we had a lot of veteran staff. They could be my parents. In fact, some of them were my teachers when I was in high school. They work at the high school that I attended and graduated from. So some of them felt I should not be their boss or supervisors. In fact, they made it known to my principal. So I'm going to share some of the lessons or strategies I implemented to gain their trust and buy-in, while I help my principal lead our school to being the top school in its category in the Tri-County area for my state. We became a model alternative school for our state. We received the Governor's Award for academic excellence and academic achievement. But before we get started and get too deep into today's episode, I want to encourage our listeners to join the School Leaders Podcast community on Facebook. There we continue and extend our conversation from the episode. Also, don't forget to check out my website at www.drgharrigan.com. Again, that's www.drgharrigan.com. There, you can listen to the podcast, read the monthly blog, and sign up for our monthly newsletter. I also would like to thank all of you who are sharing the podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. Thank you. When you share the podcast, please tag me so I can thank you personally. Take a moment right now to subscribe to the podcast and share this episode. Don't forget to also leave a 5-star rating and a positive comment. When you do, it helps other listeners to find the podcast. Let's get started. In today's episode, I'm going to share 10 tips for new assistant principal. If you're a new appointed assistant principal, congratulations. I am proud of you. I know you're excited and ready to come alongside your principal to turn around your school or to scale it up to make it a better learning environment for students. As you start on your first year or you're a veteran assistant principal new to a building, consider these tips. Tip number 1, build relationship. I often say relationships are the grease that keep schools moving toward excellence. It is important as a new assistant principal or new to your building that you start by building relationship with teachers, with support staff, with the clerical staff, really with everyone in the building. Begin by taking time to get to know your teachers, get to know the support staff, especially those that you directly supervise. It's very important that you get to know a little bit about the people that you are supervising, get to know a little bit about their family, get to know a little bit about their kids, get to know a little bit about their dreams and their goals. Connect and forge trusting relationship with them. Find out how you can support them. If you're at the secondary level or at a large elementary school and there is more than one assistant principal, you should also work at forging positive relationship with your colleagues. Learn from them and find ways to support each other. And it goes without saying that you should also take time to build relationship with your principal. Get to know him or her. Don't leave it up to chance. Oftentimes, assistant principal leave it up to chance and expect just the principal to build those relationships. Be proactive and get to know your principal. Build positive relationship. Find out what is important to your principal, because it's important as an assistant principal to learn to manage up. Tip number 2, Discover the vision and value of your principal. It is important that you get to know your principal's vision, your principal's goals for the school. Next, you should also come alongside your principal to help him or her make his or her vision or goals a reality. Find ways to support your principal. You should see yourself in that vision that he or she have for the school. Own that vision, own that goal, that goal or goals, and help them bring it to reality. Tip number 3, know what is expected of you. In other words, know your job description. You need to understand your role as an assistant principal. You need to know and understand your principal's expectation and what they want you to do. One common role, obviously, is to support your principal. But that look differently at different school and at different settings. Another thing is, another practice is that I've always had when I was an assistant principal is I would always set up time to meet with my principal over the summer. After I returned from summer break, before the school began, the goal was to really sit down with my principal, find out what is his or her vision for the year or focus areas for that year. And that gives me an opportunity to understand my role, to get a clear understanding of his or her expectation for me and areas that I needed to improve or adjust to meet those specific goals. Also, I would throughout the year, especially mid-year, I would sit down and meet with my principal. The goal was to really get feedback on how I was coming along, any adjustment I needed to make. I wanted to get clear and consistent feedback on how I was performing based on my areas of responsibilities. Don't leave it up to chance. Don't wait until the end of the year to find out how you are performing. Make time either every quarter or mid-year to find out, sit down and meet with your principal and get really clear-cut feedback on how you are doing. Don't wait until the end of the year. Tip number 4, listen. Do less talking and more listening. Let me repeat that. Do less talking and more listening. When you are new to the building or you are a new assistant principal, you need to ask lots of questions. It's okay to ask questions. Do not assume anything. Ask why things are the way they are. Ask lots of questions. Go around and really begin to listen to what other people has to say, why certain things are the way they are. As an assistant principal, one of the best thing you can do is to listen. The building is full of experts. Engage their knowledge and ask questions. And listen without trying to provide any excuses. Just listen and get feedback from your staff. This allows you to get to know people and find out why certain things are the way they are. By listening, you could find out about the traditions of the school, why things are in place the way they are, why they do things a certain way, why things are the way teachers do things, why the schedule is the way it is. Take time to listen and ask questions. Tip number 5, get to know and follow your school and district policy. It is very important as a new assistant principal to make time to get to know your school and district policy. It is very important to know the policies and procedures at your school, the policies and the procedures for your district. One of the easier ways you could get in trouble is not knowing and following district or your school policy. Some of the policies you should pay attention to are student discipline, student behaviors. How do you address certain misbehaviors by students? What are the policies? Policies around social media, policy around transportation, policy around tardiness, policy around grades. Take time to read, to know your district policy, your school policy, and the expectations that are outlined for your school. You should get to know those policies and procedures and how they impact your day-to-day work. Tip number 6, make time to visit classroom. Take time to visit classroom. Take time to visit not only when you're evaluating teachers, but go in just to do walkthroughs. Go in to when students are doing presentation, students are doing projects. Speak to your teachers and find out when there are special things are happening in their class, and go in and just observe, not just to evaluate, but just to see the learning that is happening in your building. Also, visit those teachers that are struggling, or the specific periods they're having hard time. And the reason why you go in and during those time is to find out again where they're struggling and work to provide them with support. And also, don't forget to visit your best teacher's classroom. So that way you could capture exemplary instruction. So that way you could take advantage of them when it is time to have teacher-led professional development or sharing of best practice. Don't just visit those classrooms that have challenges where teachers are struggling, but make time to visit your best teachers to really see some of the great things, teaching and learning that are happening in your building. You see, how can you help teachers move forward if you do not know firsthand what's taking place inside the classroom? So it's very important that you take time to visit the classroom. Do not let discipline and other operational stuff prevent you from getting into the classroom. It's very important you prioritize visiting classrooms. Tip number 7, manage and organize your priorities in work. The role of the assistant principal comes with many responsibilities. Managing the responsibility can be a daunting task, especially when you have discipline popping up. Oftentimes, discipline takes a lot of portion of your time. You have parents that are coming in, sometimes unannounced, and you have to address or put out different fires. It's important that you prioritize your day every day. Consider those things that are most important and list them in order of priority on your to-do list. And as you complete those things, you would mark them off of your to-do list, and make sure that you keep your non-negotiables at the top of your to-do list. Those things, those deadlines, those things that you got to get done during that week, or the projects that you got to work on. For me, I color code my calendar. My calendar is color coded. Those things that are in red, those are deadlines. Those are things I have to get done that specific day. Items that are in yellow are untouchable times. For example, those are things I have to get done today. Those are things that time to visit the classroom, things that I need to get done. This include time each day to be present in classroom, to be present in the hallway. Prioritize and manage your day-to-day work. Tip number 8, find and create a support network. No one is an island. No one is an island. The same goes for the assistant principalship. You cannot do this work alone. So it's very important that in the building, you form relationship with your colleague, you support each other. It is also important that you create a network of people or colleagues that you can call on to ask questions or just for emotional support. It's very important that if you're not a large district, if you go monthly to assistant principals meeting, whether it is in person or virtual, that you build network of people that you can call when you have questions, when it's times you can't get to your principal, or really, quite frankly, you don't want to go to your principal. There are times where you cannot go to your principal, or maybe you don't feel comfortable enough to ask your principal to be a little bit vulnerable. You need to have people you can call on who can help you, who can support you, who can answer your question. Tip number 9, make time for yourself and your family. Being an assistant principal is hard work. It is difficult, and at times it is a thankless job. The hours can be long, and oftentimes you carry and shoulder the burdens of those you serve. If you do not take care of yourself, you cannot take care of others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. When I was an assistant principal at the middle school level, I remember several times that the custodians will turn off the lights on me at night. I would still be in the building. At times, my principal, if she knew I was in the building, she would call me and tell me, go home. I was spending a lot of time in the school building. And quite frankly, because I was spending so much time, my personal relationships suffer greatly. My health also suffer. So coming out of the pandemic, many of us have learned the importance of self-care. Being an assistant principal requires finding balance between the responsibility of the position and the responsibility to yourself. So it's important that you make time for yourself, that you make time for your family. It is important to leave the building at a reasonable time, to get home and put your kids to bed. Take time and attend your kids' game or activity. Take time to just breathe. Take time to refocus. Take time to rejuvenate. Take time for yourself. Take time for your family, for your spouse, and for your kids. Tip number 10, give yourself lots of grace. The first year is typically the hardest year. Like anything else, you're starting for the first time, the first year is going to be very challenging. Give yourself lots of grace. Give yourself lots of grace. Find your groove and take it one day at a time. Take it one step at a time. You are going to make mistake. Don't expect that you're going to know everything. Remember, the assistant principalship is a marathon. So it's very important that you pace yourself. You give yourself lots of grace. Yes, you will make some mistake. Learn from them and go from there. There you have it. I hope you are able to take away at least one nugget to improve your first year as a new assistant principal or a new leader. If you know anyone who could benefit from this episode, please share it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me today. Please consider subscribing to the podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and a comment. Share this episode with a friend and on social media. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for leadership ideas and tips. Again, thank you for joining me today. Until next time.